Good evening and welcome once again to the Marty Heiser Show. This is going to be an action-packed show. Do you know in our midst we have a World War II hero, Bob Kaufman, who worked in the Army Air Corps, will be joining us for the second half of the show just to share a little historical perspective about what's going on in the economy. This is a man who was responsible for building almost 1,000 houses. He's been in business a long time. He's seen recessions come and go, and he has some perspective that we're looking forward to hear. That's Bob Kaufman, so stay tuned. And by the way, we do need updates on the NFL game, if I can get that. I can tell you that the Danbury Whalers, yes, the semi-pro hockey team here in Danbury, are up 1-0 against the Cape Cod Seagulls, or whatever it is they're calling them. Cape Cod something or other. They're winning 1-0 at the end of the first period, but we're coming to you live. I just want to open up with a thought. There's some endorsements and some covers of different magazines and newspapers. Here's one. This is hot off the press. The New York Post is saying the only choice is Mitt Romney. Now, this is no surprise, because after all, it's the New York Post. So nothing new here, but there he is. By the way, this here is Mitt Romney. This here is a bobblehead doll. So this two-dimensional, and this here is Mitt Romney right there. But no surprise there. He was endorsed by the New York Post, and I think rightly so. What is a little surprising in this campaign year is you have magazines like Newsweek. I don't know if we can get a close-up of this, but Newsweek, soon to be out of print, so don't go sending in any of those business reply cards. But Newsweek said it's time for our beloved president to hit the road, Barack. And he came out pretty tough against it. And then another rather surprising lack of an endorsement, you may have seen this one. This is the New Yorker magazine. Now, this is one of the bastions of liberalism in New York City. I mean, these people have never seen a tax increase they didn't like. They've never seen a federally funded program that they didn't embrace. And yet on the cover, you have Mitt Romney in the debate talking to an empty chair. And this is echoes of the Republican convention where Clint Eastwood talked to an empty chair, signifying the empty Barack Obama administration right now that's plumb out of ideas. So you see it unfolding. It's actually a very exciting time in our democracy because you see the transition, you see the winds shifting, you see stuff happening. So it's very exciting, and we have put together a panel this evening of people that know what they're talking about when it comes to politics, know politics on the Republican level, on the national level. We have a Republican National Committee member with us this evening, as well as 2 Connecticut state reps, and one of those crazy guys is a member of the Tea Party. And by the way, just because they're appearing on the Marty Heiser Show does not mean there's any cross-pollination going on here. Everyone speaks for themselves. That's how we do it in Connecticut circles. And we have Jim Bolano, who is a professor of political science, who will provide context and will talk us all off the ledge, as here we are less than 2 weeks away from a national election. But first, I'd like to introduce a very good friend of mine, John Fry.
Marty, thanks for having me here.
Thank you so much for coming in. I know, and I've been trying to get you to come on the show for some time, and I finally twisted your arm. Did the $100 tip I gave you help?
That we'll talk later.
Oh, all right. Well, I want to thank you very much. Real quick, we're also joined by Professor Jim Bolano of WestCon, State Representative Dan Carter, always ready to go. And we also have Bob McGuffey from the Connecticut Tea Party.
Tea Party, you do it.
And General Rabble Rouser. So thank you all.
Indeed.
Thank you all for joining us. I want to start with John Fry. John, you're a member of the Republican National Committee. There's only 2 members in the entire state of Connecticut. So you're up with the yuckity yucks in Washington and elsewhere. What are people saying about this race nationally, and how are we seeing it played out here in Connecticut?
Well, it's an exciting time. I mean, a lot could happen in 2 weeks. We had a conference call yesterday. Polling numbers are with the Romney pollster, Neil Newhouse, who's very familiar with Connecticut. Numbers looking very good in the swing states. But again, it's early, but things are trending in a positive way. If someone had asked me, which they do all the time, In September, what I thought the outcome was going to be, I was not as optimistic as I am today. But I think Governor Romney has got a very, very good chance right now. The momentum is on his side.
Now, you talked a little bit, because I've known you for a while, you talked about how Ronald Reagan came to Connecticut. Was that 1980?
It was 1984.
84.
Yeah.
Okay, and he was, there was sort of momentum going on. He was the incumbent at that time.
Right.
But do you sense that level of excitement, or not quite that
No, I
level?
mean, his, and Jim is being, studies this would know probably better than I, but I think in '84, Reagan won, all but one state or two states. I mean, it was a really big landslide.
All but Minnesota, I think.
Minnesota,
That was
yeah.
Walter
So
Mondale.
that,
Yeah, it was Mondale.
The District of Columbia.
Washington,
yeah.
D.C.
So we're not going to see a repeat of that. That was a very exciting rally on the Green and Water Bear, something I'll never forget.
Yeah.
So
That's
we're
when
not going to
John
see
Rowland
that.
was swept into
Correct.
congressional office, too.
Correct. We had a good year. That was the last time we had a Connecticut majority in the state house as well. But the potential exists that Romney could do very, very well in Electoral College. But again, the numbers are going his way in a number of swing states. From what I'm hearing, the Democrats have kind of pulled out Democrat operatives, and they're not spending money in Florida, North Carolina, and they're moving out of Virginia.
That's huge.
And that's big, yeah.
I mean, that's
big.
like throwing in the towel. That's saying,
Big.
hey, we're moving
and we're
on.
playing, we're in play in Minnesota, we're in play in Pennsylvania,
Colorado.
Wisconsin, Colorado, right, in states that, New Hampshire is going positive for Romney, so not yet, but the trending that way. So it could be a very, very good year for Romney. But again, you know what? It's 10 or 11 days away. I should know exactly. I can't wait till the day after.
Yeah.
But a lot can happen in a short period of time. I was caught something on the news today about October surprise, that we're used to having those.
Yeah.
That generally tends to help the incumbent. But we'll see what happens. But I couldn't be happier for Governor Romney at this point in time.
All right. Now, you've talked to him. You've met him.
I have met him several times. Yes.
What's he like up close and personal? Is he the real deal? I mean, to me, he just seems like a nice Mormon missionary, businessman that looks like he can turn around a company and
He's
country.
a great guy, and I got to tell you a real quick story. When he was running 4 years ago, I was in Vermont and I was watching a New Hampshire TV station, and this guy comes on TV. His name is Bob Gay, who actually lives in Ridgefield, Connecticut. And he's talking about this story how his daughter went missing in New York City for several days. He worked for Bain Capital. The police were having no luck in tracking her down. Governor Romney, then the president or chairman of Bain, closed the company, moved everybody to New York, rented a ballroom, did their own, sweep of the city looking for this girl, and found her. So that's the kind of guy, I was so surprised, being in Vermont and watching before the New Hampshire primary, the commercials. But I was so surprised to hear that, especially it rang true with the Ridgefield resident being giving the testimony.
This
That's
is
the kind
long
of guy
before
he
he was
is.
running for...
No, he was running for president, but that was 4 years ago. He wasn't successful.
Okay.
Right.
Interesting. Okay, want to introduce Jim Bolano, professor, and then Dan Carter, also a state rep. Just real quick with Dan, because maybe a month ago now, I want to say,
right.
These polls came out that showed Obama was ahead by 10 points
right.
in Ohio, ahead by, everything. It was a done deal, pack up, and you were like, I don't care what the polls say, I'm knocking on doors. And you heard something else. What did you hear?
By the way, thanks for having us on here.
Sure, thanks for coming. You look very good in that
there's,
time.
There's 11 days, 23 hours, and 50 minutes till the polls close. So
Wow.
Not that I'm counting.
Okay.
Not that I'm counting. But honestly, when I've been knocking on doors for the past couple of months, I've been hearing the same thing over and over again. I voted for Obama. I'm not going to do it again. Wow. And that's probably the second thing I hear to that is, what party are you? Republican? Great, I'm voting Republican this year. So I hear a lot of that. There's no question about it. Now, that's not to say there are folks out there who might cross party lines for this and that, but I think the general feeling in my area of Connecticut is that Obama's got to go.
That's it in a nutshell.
I think it's the general feeling out here. I mean, I'm not saying Obama's going to carry Connecticut, because obviously we know what's going to happen in Bridgeport and New Haven, but the bottom line is what I'm hearing around town is really, really good. And that's why I haven't believed the polls for a while. Yeah. I haven't believed them, and I still don't believe them. I think Romney has an amazing opportunity, and I might even go so far as say his to lose, because there's some things that are going on right now with obviously with the Libyan issue and all that.
Yeah.
That I think.
It's already recovered.
if somebody would cover it. Yeah, I
What would
got
be an issue?
Yeah, well, I got a text from my 14-year-old daughter, or excuse me, 16-year-old daughter. Sorry, Whitney. I got a text from my daughter today. She was in some sort of debate class in school, and she asked about the question that she should ask. And I told her, well, why don't you ask? Whether the White House knew for sure, or if you knew, why would you keep going on about this being the videotape issue? And the other question, the follow-up is, well, if it comes out in this open hearing from Congress that you were, will you resign from office? And the only downside of that is now we'd have Joe Biden as president. But, I think this is big.
I do too. I mean, what came out again? I mean, people compare it to Watergate, where the break-in wasn't so bad, but it was the cover-up that was so bad. Now in Benghazi, I mean, you got these crazy Muslims over there, and they're attacking anything that moves, anything that has to do with America. So, tragically, our consulate came under attack. That's tragic. Maybe security should have been better. That's fine. But it's the cover-up of this.
Right.
It's to try to pin this on this YouTube video. And it wasn't just like, oh, let's try and dodge this. They sent out the UN ambassador on 5 different television shows. Barack Obama speaking to the United Nations mentioned it 6 times. I mean, they sold out with this story. Hey, it had to do with this guy that put out this videotape. And oh, by the way, they go and arrest the guy, and he's in jail now.
Right.
I mean, last time I checked, you're allowed to do stuff like this. Freedom of the press, freedom of speech. I think it's probably a stupid video, and whoever that guy is who did it, should probably get whacked around. But he does have the First Amendment right. Last time I checked, we still do have a Constitution.
He does, and by the way, that video existed for many months before this thing ever blew up.
Yeah.
So that video had been around for a long time. So to blame that on the video in the first place always sounded a little suspect to me.
Yeah.
But again, we're going to have to wait and see how this all shakes out in the end.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is, if they, for political motives, lied to the American people about what they knew, I think that's totally inappropriate.
I think it's
totally, but he may get away with it because the media doesn't cover it.
They had a drone overhead.
I know.
The ambassador had a dinner guest.
I know.
The ambassador, the drone, the videotape shows him walking the dinner guest out to the gate saying, thanks, the veal was wonderful. See you next week at the cricket match or whatever they do over there in Libya. Good night, and goes back in. There's no mob that turns into spontaneous. There wasn't anything at all.
Yeah.
And then you get these emails that are happening right when it's happening. And you know what? The intelligence community and some of the diplomatic community, they're the ones leaking all these emails. They're like, you ain't throwing me under the bus. I ain't going down with the USS Obama.
No, I mean, think of it for a second. Most of the people in the intelligence service and the military are just like us here. They're normal people. They want to go to work. They want to do a good job. They believe in their country. Yeah. And at the end of the day, they're going to participate in a big cover-up for something like this, especially when fellow Americans were killed. Yeah. So if that's the truth, it's going to come out.
Bob, what are you hearing up on the ramparts, up on the front lines? I just got this funny feeling about the whole Tea Party thing, how it plays out in Connecticut. Because I got this.
We're involved. We're in campaigns. We've gone in, and there's less protesting. But listen, for our movement, for the grassroots, for the groups that came out, this is 4 years. This is the culmination of 4 years. When Obama was elected, we knew exactly what he was going to do, and many of our groups started between that election and New Year's, as ours did, and then the Tea Party emerged, and he started right away with stimulus, omnibus, and then pushing the health care bill. I mean, he did $1 trillion worth of debt, and he was only in office for 6 weeks. And we knew that was coming. And so, we've been working 4 years on this. And so the Tea Party, there's not a Tea Party person sitting on their hands coast to coast, let me tell you.
Okay, but now all in all, I want to play out the Tea Party in the Nutmeg State. The last time I checked, it's a fairly liberal state.
Sure
I got a mailer for Tony Boucher, whoever her opponent is, who I believe Tony Boucher will win, state senator, great state senator, the Energizer Bunny, pound for pound, one of the most wonderful public servants in Connecticut. But she sent out, her opponent sent out this mailer where Tony's in a teacup, and it's like, hey, she's in favor of limited government. Isn't that a bad thing? So is it a bad thing to have your endorsement or a good thing?
Well,
and then you guys are hacking on Andrew Rohrbeck.
Depends.
What's up with that?
It depends who's doing the observing. The liberals know that the liberal media has spent 2 years when they saw the Tea Party emerge. They knew exactly who we were, average citizens, the silent majority, out getting in the arena. It's the last thing they ever wanted was regular people getting in the arena fighting for the right things. So they spent 2 years disparaging us. We're racist, we're phobes of all stripes and all the rest. And a certain amount of that sticks in the minds of people that want to believe that. So they all believe that calling somebody Tea Party is the end of the world, and that's enough to sink you. We'll see. We'll see. It's not, because for people like them, balancing a budget is a radical thought, and that's where they come from. So we've had to fight it here.
Our intrepid producer and co-host of the show, David Stray, called me up and said, Barack Obama is speaking in Stamford. There's a rally down there. You want to bring the camera down there? There's some Tea Party folks. I said, sure, why not? We do this for free. Go down there, and supposedly the Tea Party is racist and anti-immigrant. All I could find were African Americans, Indian, people from England, people from South Africa.
You find your grandmother there. You find your aunt there. They've never come out to see it.
There's nothing more compelling for a journalist than to put a microphone in the mouth or the face of an African American gentleman and say, I understand the Tea Party's racist. What do you have to say? And he says, no, that's not racist. And then you go to the next person and they're from India and you say, I understand the Tea Party is anti-immigrant. What do you say? Oh, they are not anti-immigrant at all. Not at all. I mean, it's incredible.
Hey, look, it's still the power of the mainstream media. They did it, and we're still fighting back through it.
Caller, do you have a question for our guest?
Well, I got a question for you, Marty, because you just said, I like you, Marty. I see you on Main Street. I always say hello, but
I got a bad feeling about this. I feel like he's buttering me up. He likes me, but
There's
here it
a big
comes.
butt coming.
All right, go ahead.
I respect the fact your son's serving in the military, but Marty, you just said that you compared what happened at Benghazi, you compared it to Nixon and Watergate. Come on, Marty. I mean, listen, this is presidential politics. You throw such phrases around. I like that. Your panel of guests, do they at all agree with what you just said, that what happened in Benghazi, which is a strategical error? And, the thing is, you have to understand, of course, it's 21st century. We're not fighting another country. We're fighting a terrorist organization. And what you just said is an insult to the troops, and because troops were killed. I don't believe any troops were killed in Watergate. I'm just. Do you actually mean that in your heart of hearts, Marty? Are you that paranoid and that? Do you have that much hatred for the other side to come out with such a nincompoop comment like that?
No. My point regarding Benghazi vis-a-vis Watergate is that it's not the crime, breaking into Democratic headquarters or raiding a consulate, but it's the cover-up. That was the extent of my point.
I see. So that cover-up of Watergate, which threatened the national security of one candidate, which can you imagine Watergate happening today, of breaking into, it'd be like you breaking into Marconi's headquarters, and all of a sudden you're Deborah Ann's, talking to someone from the Ritual Press.
No, my only comparison vis-a-vis Watergate was that it wasn't the initial crime or the initial attack, but it was the cover-up that became the problem. And I think that analogy holds true.
All right. Let me ask you, with that being said, I'll pass on the ridiculousness of that. Can I ask a serious question of
Please, we have quite a brain trust here, so ask your question. Go ahead.
Now, is that Mr. Fry in the corner, or is my TV that small?
It is John Fry, yes.
Mr. Fry, another nice person I run into after a disaster is Yanni, after the hurricane, after the blizzard last year.
Yes.
But in 7 terms and 14 years up in Hartford, you have passed 0 bills. Let me finish. You reach across the aisle, never. You took the last bill you passed was the J.J. Bryce social hosting bill, which was a knee-jerk reaction, I thought, to her death. It was an admirable bill to pass. I think you took advantage of her death. Where were you 10 years ago on social hosting? Where were you, Mr. Fry, when it came to voting against calories on menus. You voted against that. The only thing that I've seen your record that you voted for was a motorcycle act bill about the information about driving motorcycles. You vote 95% nay, 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 nay. You know, why don't you reach across the aisle?
All right.
You play the Democrats.
Caller.
Every budget, you circle.
Caller. I've written down about 3 different questions, so can we give a chance for him to answer? It seems like it might be more informative for the public.
Thank you, Marty.
All right, thanks a lot. Thanks for calling. I don't know. It doesn't sound like he doesn't like me. I
had the same
Same
I
feeling?
was like, he seen me around town, but
Okay, go right ahead. So what about that?
Well, it's not a matter of voting no. I mean, I vote yes, I vote no. I've supported budgets. The last 5 years, we've proposed alternative budgets that I voted for that didn't involve raising taxes. It involved shrinking the size of government. It didn't involve retroactive tax increases, which I think is absolutely reprehensible. The bill that he referred to regarding social hosting, first he said I haven't passed the bill, and then he said I did pass a bill. I've passed several bills, many bills. I passed 2 my freshman year, which is unusual. But the one that came regarding social hosting came from a Ridgefield coalition of a group of people concerned about youth and drinking and substance abuse. And they brought it to me in November. It passed through 2 committees nearly unanimously.
That's basically if you're hosting underage drinking party and God forbid
The penalty
there's
went
an
up
accident.
the penalty went up for the first offense.
All right, excellent.
But I
think that's
I
very
had 14 co-sponsors, half were Democrats, half Republicans. So I reached across the aisle. The News Times, when endorsing me on a couple days ago, made a specific point saying how I've been successful reaching across the aisle.
All right.
So.
Well, look, I think he didn't really understand my analogy vis-a-vis Watergate or whatever. How do you see the election unfolding? Then we'll go to you.
It was back in the summer we talked about the dynamics and all this. And one thing I focused on looking at 2008, that there were 6 states, now there's more toss-up states, but there were 6 states that if they flipped from Obama 08 to Romney 12, Romney would win the Electoral College. It was Florida, North Carolina, Virginia, New Hampshire, Ohio, and Indiana. You say they're pulling out of Virginia, they're pulling out of Florida, they're pulling out of North Carolina. Indiana's already in the column. So you're talking about New Hampshire. Ohio is, kind of puzzling. They elected a Republican governor in 2010, strong Republican legislature, and I don't know why the argument isn't being made that may be turning around their economy as much as the auto bailout.
No, I think Barack Obama's getting credit for the auto industry, and he's really playing
but
that
Kasich has also
in
turned
Ohio.
that state around here in Ohio. So that leaves New Hampshire and Ohio, those 2 6 states. But now, Wisconsin is in play, Colorado's in play, so it could offset those. So, he's 4/6 of the way there, 2/3 of the way there to achieving that goal. And, Connecticut, I think Obama won by 23 points in 08. So maybe he'll win by 10 this time, but he's still going to win. But if one of those early eastern states flips early, that's going to be a bad sign for President Obama.
Let me ask that. I mean, it might be presumptuous of me to start talking about Romney coattails, but do you see Romney campaign doing well in Connecticut? Can that trickle down into, say, Linda McMahon's race against Chris Christie?
I definitely think so. I mean, if you drive through many parts of Connecticut, you would see a lot more support out there for Romney. You have people clamoring to buy signs. It's not that they're just
this guy's such a good businessman. He's making a profit on his own campaign. You got to pay for the lawn signs.
Well, it makes sense because
This guy knows how to make money.
We know it takes a lot. We know it takes a lot. And by the way, the analogy earlier, maybe we shouldn't have used Watergate. Maybe we should have talked about Monica Lewinsky.
Monica Lewinsky.
Cover up.
So again, we're talking about events and then the cover up. Bob, what do you see? You see Romney strong, and does that affect anything in Connecticut?
Connecticut,
Are we a little isolated bubble of liberalism? Nothing that happens.
McMahon's closer to the lead here than Romney is, right? The spread between McMahon and Murphy is tighter than it is between Obama and Romney.
So what you're hearing from your cohorts out there, Linda McMahon, by the way, is she in your good graces with the Tea Party?
Murphy cannot be elected.
So it's the worst.
She wasn't my favorite. People know that, but.
But are you guys helping? You're not pulling a roar back on her, are you?
Some Tea Party people are. Now,
what about you?
I work for conservatives, so I'm working for local people, Chris DeSanctis in my town, and I'm working for Wayne Winsley.
Caller, do you have a question for this august body of political brains here?
Yeah, I do indeed, Marty, and thanks so much for taking my call. It's Larry.
What do you mean taking your call? What am I going to do? Not answer? Go ahead.
Well, first.
And by the way, may I be the first to, give you my condolences about the Islanders moving to Brooklyn? That's got to hurt.
Yeah, I'm disappointing. They'll probably play in the Aviators rink. 2000. Do this to me. First, a comment on.
Quickly.
Okay, on Jim and Dan's comments about what they see as momentum in the race. From all I've been reading, I don't see Romney having really much of a chance in Pennsylvania. I think Obama, while his lead was maybe 5 or 6 in Ohio, it had gone down to maybe 2 or 3 after the first debate. From what I understand, that's moving back up in Obama's favor. I don't see anything I haven't seen anything that says Obama is pulling out of Florida. I believe he was down in Tampa just the other day. That's one comment. I have a comment to Bob, and then I'm going to comment about something Bob said, and then I have a question for Bob, and of course the rest of the panel can chime in should they so desire. Bob, you made the point that the Tea Party knew what Obama was going to do in regards to the stimulus package and in regards to some of the spending packages that he's implemented. And you also mentioned the health care bill. You knew about it because that's what he said he was going to do. And I think that certainly differentiates him from Mitt Romney, where you certainly have no idea, should he be elected, what he's going to do, the way he's all over the place. But my specific question to you, and then I'll listen to your response.
Land this plane, Larry. Land this plane. Let's go.
I'm landing the plane, Marty. I'm landing the plane. Karl Rove in 2010, when David Cameron, who's one of the, was a conservative, was elected in England and went through these tremendous austerity measures, Karl Rove came out and praised him to death, and how England had to get their budget, deficit under control, and how they were going.
So the English government cut spending and it hurt their economy, right?
And now England's in depression. And the United States is doing pretty well compared to all major economies. So I want to know what you think about.
Excellent.
If the spending package is really a terrible thing.
Thank you. Okay, just real quick, I liked how the New York posted it. 4 frustratingly long years ago, a war-weary and economically battered America took a flyer on a savior. It didn't work out. Now, in 12 days, the nation will return to the polls to reject or to ratify the results of the great Barack Obama experiment. But what about that?
All right. He pitched it to me. You can't deficit spend your way out of this. Now, if you go on the austerity route, your economy is going to take a hit. It's going to have to come down. It's going to have to level set. Capitalism will clean out the non-productive businesses, and it will begin to level set on a new economy and move up. But yes, it'll take a hit. What Geithner and Obama did was they're inflating the currency. They're inflating this economy. They're printing money. It's a narcotic. Eventually, we're going to come out of this, and it's going to hurt, and there's going to be a crash. We in the Tea Party who are looking at this, if you could do the math, we know there's a big financial crash coming. There has to be. They have incurred so much debt that the interest, in order to pay the interest on that, you would need to keep interest rates at 0 to 1% for 50 to 100 years to keep them within the United States budget pie. Once these interest rates begin to rise, it's going to blow the budget apart, and that's going to cause tremendous disruptions in the economy. We could be facing anything from a hyperinflation to a tremendous devaluation of the dollar to just a total busting of the budget where the entitlements would have to be severely cut back, including on the people that are on there today. And this is what he's bringing all about. Barack Obama, we happen to know his biography. We studied it. We knew he was a Marxist. He's a trained Marxist. And we knew what that was going to bring to one degree or another once he took power. And it only took him a month.
All right. There are 2 members of this panel that are on the ballot in this year's election. Dan Carter, I want to give you a minute to tell the people why they should vote for you, and then we're going to close with John Fry.
Okay.
Hold on.
Obviously, Marty, I think there's a couple of reasons, and I think people have seen it pretty clearly. Connecticut Business Industry Association has seen it and they endorse me. Even the Danbury News-Times endorse me because they see that I'm somebody that makes pretty rational decisions. In fact, I found common ground with the Democrats about 76% of the time this year, believe it or not. Now that 24% where I disagree are on big things like the budget. We cannot continue this path of spending in the state of Connecticut. That's what got us in this hole today. So, the bottom line is I'm somebody who went there saying that I would hold the line on spending. I'd reach across the aisle where I could. I've done exactly that. And I think people, they know that about me. And they know I give excellent constituent service in my district. So that's something that my district hasn't had in a long time. And I think they're going to vote me in for 2 more years.
John Fry?
Well, thank you, Marty. Similar to what Dan was saying, I think I proved myself last 14 years. I look at the role of a legislator as kind of 3 prongs. One is seeking state funding when it's appropriate, and I've delivered millions of dollars to Ridgefield over the last 14 years. Getting bills passed, being a legislator, I've dedicated myself to that. And constituent service. I had Barbara Ireland, who was a Democratic predecessor years ago, told me that you treat every case as if it's very important, and they all are, whether it's registering a boat trailer to trying to assist someone whose father died. I had this recently. Father died in Vietnam, was having difficulty bringing his remains back home. So it's changed of late. Now it's dealing with people whose COBRA is running out and have difficulty with insurance and getting jobs and foreclosures. It's very serious, even in Ridgefield. I think sometimes in Hartford they think it's R-I-C-H field and not Ridge. So I think, as Dan said, he got 100% approval rating from the Connecticut business industry. I also got 100% from them, and also the Connecticut League of Conservation Voters. As I mentioned to the News-Times, I was the first Republican to have sit down with Governor Malloy. So I recognize the importance of working with both parties. I wish one party had a monopoly on great ideas. I think the Republicans tend to have more good ideas. But we need to work collaboratively, and I think I've done that in the last 14 years.
Well, listen, thank you very much. I'd like to continue this. There's going to be an election, but we have a World War II hero among us, and that's going to be the second half of the show. And right now, we're going to go to a public service announcement.
In this state, there are no extras, no fluff, no frills, no free lunch, no second helpings, no streets paved with gold, no promise, no certainty. In this state, life is a bitter struggle to survive with the least. It's home to 1 out of every 11 families in America. It's home to 1 out of every 6 children in America. It's home to more than 32 million people. It's the state of American poverty. And if you were poor, you'd be home by now.
Why is it you two have so much trouble communicating?
I don't like the way he talks to me. He doesn't have to use that kind of language.
All I said was that you had a big osteo fight. Oh, okay, well, what about the secrets you kept from me?
Oh, so I didn't tell you about my drug allergies. Big deal.
That could have been nasty.
Ooh. Okay. So how come I always have to go to your place?
I'd be happy to come to you, Judith. I can't fit the X-ray machine in my car. How's your shoulder doing anyway?
Fine.
Yeah?
I worked up to 3-pound dumbbells yesterday.
Really? Huh. Just 3 weeks after surgery. That's pretty good.
Yeah?
Communication is the best medicine. A message from the American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons.
Well, now we're getting somewhere.
Bob here. Good evening and welcome back to the Marty Heiser Show. You know, we have had an exciting panel. You could take just one of those guests and do a whole hour on each one of them. I want to thank John Fry so much, State Representative for the 111th District, otherwise known as Ridgefield, Connecticut. Next to Reading, which is a wonderful town as well. Ridgefield, Connecticut is a little slice of heaven right here in Farifield County. And John Fry is a much beloved public servant from that town, and he's running for re-election, as well as Dan Carter, who's one of the young Turks in the Republican Party in Hartford and does a great job, and Jim Bolano, the college professor, and Bob McGuffey. And he's one of those Tea Party guys, but I'll be darned if he doesn't make a lot of sense. So now we are delighted to have on the Marty Heiser Show, where you always get the truth, Bob Kaufman. Bob, I want to thank you so much for coming in. And you have had a very interesting life. You were in the military during World War II. You were a pilot in the Army Air Corps. You have 4 kids, 11 grandkids, 5 great-grandkids. You have been an independent businessman. You've built over 1,000 homes as well as another industrial building. You've made a fortune, lost a fortune, made a fortune, lost a fortune. And I just want to know, what is your perspective on America today, on the politics, where we're going economically, and what would your advice be to our vast viewing audience?
You should have asked those over here before.
Well, I did.
The economy is basically on building. When the housing comes back, so will the country will come back. It's always been that way. It's been the last 3 or the last 2 I was in. But what you've got too many rules, too many regulations, it takes too long to get anything done.
Ouch.
It hurts, and you just can't do it. And you got the tax structure is we don't even know what we can do.
Wow.
But we don't know what's coming up. I had a couple of jobs I wanted to start, but I refuse to move till I see what's going to happen to the country.
Is that right?
Yes. There's no sense. How can you move?
Okay, but that dynamics is as an independent businessman, in your enlightened self-interest, you have something that you can do. You have the resources available to move ahead, but you're holding back because you don't know what the economy is going to bring. You don't know what government regulation, government taxes is going to bring. You take that dynamic and multiply it millions of times across this country, and that's where you get a stagnant economy. Would you agree with that?
That's the problem. You want business to come to this country. Your rules and regulations, I can't understand anybody wanting to come to this country with all the rules and regulations. Yeah. It's just, it buries you.
I'm embarrassed. My wife is Canadian. I have 4 brother-in-laws up in Canada. Do you know that the corporate tax structure in Canada is more attractive to business than it is in America?
We're the highest in the country, in the world.
39% corporate taxes.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, corporations are fleeing America to Canada because they have a more favorable business climate. What is the matter with this picture?
But on your corporate tax, if you take money after that, you pay a second tax.
Yeah.
It's a tough rule.
Okay, now I haven't asked you this question, right? So this isn't a setup or anything like that. But where were you when you first heard our President Barack Obama, say, if you got a business, you didn't build that? Where were you?
You know, I really don't know, but I remember on a rebroadcast, I remember hearing it at night. And it's rather interesting because I don't know if anybody's got a business that they didn't start and work themselves. I worked 15, 17 hours, 7 days a week, and we kept doing it.
Yeah.
We've been there. I go back to an old saying in the Air Corps. You know, the difficult we do immediately, the impossible takes a little longer.
The difficult we do immediately, the impossible takes a little longer.
And boy, you got to live by that.
Yeah.
Your theory is, and they have so much structure in head of you, so much rules and regulations, you can't get past it.
Yeah.
And by the time you get past it, they compromise. And they don't compromise. I don't want to use the term, but we have other ways. it's not legitimate how they do these boards and stuff.
Okay.
And they're they're handicapped.
Yeah.
And a lot of them don't make sense. They're violating their own rules and regulations for their convenience, and that's where a lot of problems are.
Right, right.
But you've got OSHA in this part of the country. I was in Pennsylvania, it was about 8-10 years ago. That plant didn't have any OSHA at all. And the reason why? Because they said if they shut our plant down, the town shuts down. So there's a money deal. This is what we're up against. It's interesting. It's tough. But the only way to beat it is to keep pounding at it. But they said, some new laws, or 83,000 new laws in the United States, federal laws. You just can't keep up with it.
Yeah, I've never been successful enough to be a builder of your stature like you are. I have a painting business. But even in the painting business, they have these new lead regulations where you have to go in and you have to take the test, all of which we did. But some of these regulations are just ridiculous. If you power wash a house, you're supposed to collect the water in plastic sheeting and take it off to a toxic waste dump from power washing a house. A good thunderstorm, you get the same dynamics of water hitting a house. Why is that harming the? I don't know.
We had a fire a few years ago. Actually, it was 1.6 million, and it was rather interesting.
A fire that cost 1.6 million?
Oh yeah, that's what they paid out on it. We had to go another $300,000-400,000 to put it all together again. That was on our M&M concrete plant.
Oh, okay.
That's one of our.
And by the way, if you live in and around the area, Mr. Kaufman has built such buildings as the FedEx building out by the airport,
I used
as well
to own
as the
that.
Waterworks.
Yeah.
Oh, you own the building.
I sold it.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay. But you built it as well.
Yes.
And then in addition to over 1,000 homes in the area and so forth.
We built the Waterworks building. I still own that. We took an AIA award for that.
Wow.
And it's hard to do anything with anybody anymore. They have the idea that you're doing them a favor. They're supposed to help us. When you walk into a restaurant and they say, you stand there, no, I just come in to get out of the rain. What the hell am I there for? I want to eat.
Yeah, right.
Same thing with your towns.
Yeah.
Well, I don't say they're all, they've improved an awful lot, but they're not working with you, they're working against you.
Yeah.
And why?
I don't know. I don't get it.
The DEP, I had a water system, the DEP, give you an idea of what it's about. We were supposed to be grandfathered.
Right.
They didn't grandfather us. They sent so much paper, so I was busy building. In the meanwhile, we missed it. So 5 years later, or 7 years later, they come in with a $9,000 fine, and so we had to go to a meeting and everything else. But we've been pumping this amount of water for almost 35 years.
Right.
Now we sold it. They want us to put in 3 wells, pump for 72 hours to find out what's going to happen. Right. Now, we've been pumping it for 35 years. All the fish either died or went on to heaven. I don't know where they are. The birds have moved, and the weeds, they've already changed. Now, the idea is that would cost $200,000 to $250,000, and those people have to pay for it.
Yeah.
And you're fighting. When we go for a rate increase, we have to do the same thing as Bridgeport High, all the big companies.
Right.
And it's costly.
Yeah.
And they don't break it down to where it makes sense.
Yeah, no, it's true. Like Ronald Reagan famously says, if it moves, tax it. If it keeps moving, regulate it. And if it stops moving, subsidize it.
That's very true.
Something like that. Yeah, I mean, it's typical. I mean, it seeps down into everything. For our painting business, we did a painting job for West Point. And there was a lot of regulations with that. We actually just finished up, of all things, a lighthouse out in the middle of Long Island Sound. Kind of an exciting job for us. But you have the Historical Society, you got all these regulations, and to try to get paid after you've worked for the government for all these things, it really takes quite a time. But now let me ask you, because I'm looking to you to walk me back away from the ledge. Are we going to make it here in America? Is this like, this election coming up in a week and a half now? If things don't turn out and we don't turn the clock back a little bit, are we going to be in trouble, or have you seen this stuff come and go and it's going to be okay?
We don't make a change now. We got a tough road.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, have you seen it this bad? Have you seen the politics so polarized?
No, I've never seen anything like it, and I never got through high school. But I can add and subtract, and these guys can't even add and subtract. I mean, where are we going? How can you have $100 in your bill, in your bank,
Right.
and hire $300 worth of labor? It doesn't work. That's how to run the government. It can't work that way.
Yeah.
And you don't print money. The dollar's gone down so far. That's why our gas prices are so high. When you buy now, you're not buying $1 anymore.
Yeah, it was right here. It'll just take me a second to find it, but there was this cartoon for quantitative easing that talks about what you were talking about. But basically, it's just a wheel that keeps spinning as people go and try to. I don't know. It was right here somewhere, but it's just quantitative easing is where you just keep printing money and printing money, eventually hoping that it doesn't, affect it. But you just can't do it. You just can't keep the.
You can't go on this way.
Yeah,
No.
yeah. As a matter of fact, it just appeared miraculously. I don't know if we can get a close up of that, but that's basically it. What did it say? Quantitative easing defined. I don't know. This is something along those lines, where you're just printing more and more money, and around it goes.
You can't do it.
But you're not creating any value. You're not creating any value.
Well,
at
you
all.
could do it, but not anymore. There's a saturation point.
Yeah. Now, let me ask you something. Now, you said that in your business career, I always like hearing business stories. You said you made a fortune, you've lost a fortune. How have you weathered the most recent downturn in the economy? Were things going pretty well up until 2007,
Very good.
2008?
We were doing very good, yeah.
So from the whole Bush years seemed to be pretty good until it all fell off a cliff.
It fell apart.
And then how do you make it through that,
More mortgages, something you were going to pay off, you don't pay it off. Well, I've had up to 100 men work for me. I think I got about 10 now.
Wow.
In the office and everything. We're doing nothing. We're just sitting. We're doing something, but we're not even paying the freight on it.
Yeah.
It's a situation you're up against. We went through it the last time with the building and loan.
Yeah, you were talking about that, the savings and loan. Now,
Savings and loan.
give me a historical.
Well, they went out. That was in the 90s. The banks went out and they took everybody with them.
Yeah.
I had one incident. I had $1 million worth of land was just appraised. I gave it to them. I forget the name, not Union Trust, it was another bank. I gave it to them. They set up a $250,000. In the meanwhile, they went belly up. I lost the land and lost the money, and under the law at that time, you couldn't finance land.
Yeah.
See, they maneuver this. It was rather interesting, and during that, Roberts was the one that dissolved everything for the banks for the federal government here.
Okay.
But in California, they were buying everything.
Okay.
So the people that were selling, these fellows here were selling here, California was buying it. It was rather interesting.
Wow.
Well, yeah, it was. I got a telephone call, and here I am. You want to buy your house back? I said, I'm still here.
Yeah.
But it's interesting.
Is America still the land of the free and the home of the brave? Can a guy coming out of college or out of high school right now with his wits and his hard work and the sweat of his brow, can he go out there, can he start being a builder and work his way up and be super successful like yourself? Or what do you think?
It was a different world today. Everything is, they've got it so your own intuition doesn't mean a hell of a lot. They look very simply at a computer, and this is how it works. You go to a bank to get a loan from the bank today.
Yeah.
Well, it's utterly ridiculous.
Yeah.
I just had to put one together. We had a loan. It was about $500,000. Never missed a payment for years.
Yeah.
But the bank merged. They wanted to be paid off.
They wanted to close
But
you out.
never missed anything.
Yeah.
And now this is interesting. This is the bank. And you go to the bank now, they want your firstborn, they want this, they want that.
Yeah.
We never had to give our income tax stuff. Never.
No,
it's ridiculous today.
That's what people say. They talk about, we saved the economy, we helped out the banks, we saved the banks.
No.
They didn't save the banks for normal businessmen, normal guys that have had a line of credit. I mean, I don't know what yours is, but mine, $100,000 line of credit, you pay it down to 60 or 70, and then you borrow it back in the winter and you pay it down. And now we need a little more. Okay, so let me give you $120,000 line of credit. We'll pay off the first one. Now you got fresh money, and that's what you do. You have lunch with your banker once a year, and that's how it works.
You have no volume. You can't pay it back. I mean, you can't get out of it. You're just they're milking you. You have to stay where you are.
Yeah.
You can't get ahead. under these conditions, unless you have something with federal government or some big jobs coming up, and that's it. But you have to be on the other side of it.
I heard one saying that if banks will give you apples if you own an apple orchard. You know, I mean, if you
Well, I always say when you're doing good, they're right with you.
Yeah, it was funny. I was talking to a builder in Ridgefield. Same thing. He said, you know, boy, when I was building custom homes and they were selling, you know, $2-3 million homes, boy, he was invited to the cocktail parties and at the club and everything like that. And all of a sudden, the economy turned and those homes weren't selling. It all dried up. You're not the belle of the ball anymore.
Back in the 60s, State National Bank, they said, why don't you do business with us? I said, we do, but we can't do mortgages with you because you're up and down. So they said, well, I said, no. And I did a lot of work with Lomas and Nettleton at the time. Yeah. And about 6 months, there were no more mortgages. I still had mortgages. Wow. Because through Lomas and Nettleton, we used to tie in $500,000 a year or whatever we needed. Right. And it was committed for, and a lot of it came from Metropolitan Life in those days.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, out of Jersey. Yeah.
Okay, so now let's turn back the clock. You're 19, 20 years old. You've helped win World War II. You've rid the world of fascist Japanese imperialism and the Nazi fascism in Europe. You're starting out on your own. Can people do that same thing now? I mean, what would you tell to the young man or woman out there right now that wants to start out in business, is a little concerned, doesn't know what to do, but is tired of living in their parents' house, in their childhood bedroom, looking up at a poster of hope and change from Barack Obama, and they want to do something new?
Now, on the route we're on now, show me where socialism works. Show me one country where it works. It doesn't. You can't. Yeah.
But it sure sounds good, doesn't it?
No, it doesn't.
You know, we're going to take from those rich people and we're going to give it to all these people that are, you know, underprivileged and needy. Doesn't that sound good? You know, the rich people.
Well, you
know who we're talking. Right now, the 1%, they can afford it. Let's just take the money and give it to these people, and I'll be the hero. And oh, by the way, vote for me.
Right now, I'd say that you and I are paying about 75% of our income in taxes.
Yeah, if you add it all up.
That's what it's about.
State,
now, how
local,
can you move?
Federal, gas.
That's it. Sure.
Yeah.
And there's tax on tax on tax. Federal excise tax, sales tax on top of it. It's rather interesting.
MTA tax, I take a train once a year and I'm paying a tax for the trains. Paying a tax every time I use my cell phone.
Well, taxes, you have to have taxes, but why don't they use the money right? They don't have, the government never created anything but a problem. Mm-hmm. The only reason why I have a recession, and all these people, you had some politicians in here. Yeah. Who spent the money? Did you? I didn't. Those fellas, those 400 and some odd fellas up in Washington spent it.
I'm pretty sure
Where the hell did they spend it?
Jobs.
Huh?
I'm pretty sure they had shovel-ready jobs.
Well, no. They never had a job in their life. They're up there. You remember when they created...
They were community organizers. What do you mean they don't have a job?
When they created the Constitution and everything...
need to be organized.
They never thought they were going to have a professional politician. Yeah, they never allowed for them, and that was your problem. Yeah. They're supposed to be working for us. It doesn't work that way. How can you work? They increase their own money. They do this. They do that. They don't even want our Social Security. They don't want our Medicare stuff. They want their own. Who the hell are they? We're paying them, and we let them get away with it. Does your men come up in the morning and tell you what you're going to do?
No.
Well, they are.
I know.
Here we are.
It is turning around backwards.
Well,
all right. Well, okay. We've gone on and on about the problems. What's the answer? What do we need to do?
Well, that's a tough question. Actually, we need a businessman.
All right.
You got to have a businessman. Hold on. You got the biggest business.
Hold on.
You got the biggest business in the world.
Okay, this is bobblehead doll. Go ahead.
Well, he's a businessman.
All right.
And I have to laugh because they say, well, it was given to him. It wasn't given to him. He started with nothing and made it.
Yeah.
And he's I don't know about whether he's going to be conservative or this or that. I can't say that.
Yeah.
But a businessman can run it. Yeah. No one else can. This other guy doesn't know what the hell we're talking about.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I had a list of some of the different businesses that he's worked in and that he's had a hand in. Here's just a little list: AMC Entertainment, Burger King, Burlington Coat Factory, Clear Channel Communication, Domino's Pizza. 30 minutes, I'll bring a pizza to your front door. Dunkin' Donuts, I like it. Guitar Center, the Sports Authority, Staples, Toys R Us, Warner. These are all businesses that Bain Capital had a hand in. And they created tens of thousands of jobs. Now some people will say, oh yeah, but they gutted the steel industry. They did this wrong, that wrong. But they don't understand
when
business.
you have a business that doesn't work, you get rid of it. You start something else. If you're painting a house a certain way, it doesn't stay in there. You do something else. You change your paint with a supply or something.
Yeah.
But it's a losing. You're just not getting any place. With the way they've got the structure today, you just can't get ahead. Yeah. A few will make it, but not many. Yeah. And it's hard. Of course, even today, you get a guy 30 years old. He says, "I got to find myself." Hell, give him a pick and shovel. He'll find himself. Come on.
I never really like with my kids. They would always say, "Look, I'm not raising any victims around here. Get a job, wait a table. The world still needs ditch diggers or something like that." I'm not very big on. I went to college. I took racially correct Eastern European history, and now I can't find a job.
Well, a lot of it's that way, but common sense comes into an awful lot of it. If you want a job, there's a job out there. Start on the bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of these people lost jobs for 100, 200,000. They want that job. Start at 50.
Yeah.
It's better than nothing. If they get hungry, you're feeding them. A very good thing is go to a park. Yeah. Don't feed the animals.
Okay.
Why? Because they become dependent on you. We're feeding the animals.
Okay. On that note, I want to thank you so much for your practical wisdom. I want to thank you for your service to the country.
You're welcome.
I want to thank you for being a businessman that built over 1,000 homes and provided gainful employment for countless number of people. Dave Strait says you're quite the pillar of the community in Reading, Connecticut.
I'm just another person who's trying to make a living.
Well, you've done very good, Ed, and you're an inspiration. I really appreciate you coming in and sharing your thoughts.
Thank you.
All right, well, thank you. Now, listen, that's it for tonight on the Marty Heiser Show. I'd like to get an update on the NFL game if we could have it. I mean, I figure it's basically an important public notice. We don't even know the game. Of course, if the Chicago Bears were playing, we would let you know. We would for sure know. It's just come to me. 2010 Buccaneers. That's what I'm talking about. I got the Buccaneers. They got that Rutgers coach that, at the final minutes they crash into each other. He's a little bit of a whack job, but I like his style. Those Buccaneers are good. Join us next week on the Marty Heiser Show, where you always get the truth. I have no idea what we're talking about. For goodness sakes, come out and vote. It's very important, and I want to thank you again for being on the show.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. We'll see you next week.